Good afternoon, and welcome to this presentation on Saudi Arabia's renewable energy transition. Over the next 20 minutes, we will examine, using only official data, how the kingdom is integrating renewable resources into its energy system. The National Renewable Energy Program under the Ministry of Energy has set an ambitious target. Renewables are expected to provide about 50% of the kingdom's energy by 2030. This presentation will highlight the process and challenges across hydropower, biomass, and biofuels, with wind power and solar photovoltaic and thermal technologies, as well as geothermal and tidal energy. Each section will be supported with official figures, projects, and documented outcomes, ensuring a transparent and evidence-based narrative. This presentation is organized into six main sections. We will begin with an overview of how Saudi Arabia integrates renewable resources into its energy system, including national strategies and current capacity. Then, we will analyze hydropower, biomass, and biofuels, followed by wind power. The first section will explore both solar photovoltaic and solar thermal developments, which are central to the country's strategy. Next, we will address geothermal and tidal energy, technologies that remain in early stage of consideration. Finally, we will conclude with key insights and outlooks aligned with the Vision 2030 renewable energy targets. This structured agenda ensures that each technology is addressed within its national context and supported by official data. Saudi Arabia has taken decisive steps to integrate renewable resources into its national energy mix. By the end of 2024, the kingdom operated 6,551 megawatts of renewable energy projects, consisting of 6,151 megawatts of solar and 400 megawatts of wind capacity. The bar chart illustrates this distribution, clearly showing the dominance of solar compared to wind. If we look at the growth trend, shown in the line chart, capacity has expanded rapidly, from an estimated of 100 megawatts in 2019 to 440 megawatts by 2021, 2,800 megawatts in 2023, and then more than doubling to 6,551 megawatts in 2024. This trajectory highlights the acceleration of deployment after 2022. Yet, when we examine the pie chart comparing renewables to the total installed capacity of about 91,678 megawatts in 2023, renewables represent only 7.2 total percent of the system, while fossil fuel-based generation still accounts for over 92%. This shows both the progress made and the scale of the challenge ahead. To finance this growth, investments reach approximately SAR 19.84 billion, with SAR 18.26 billion dedicated to solar projects and SAR 1.57 billion to wind. Moreover, the Al Shauliba solar project achieved a levelized cost of electricity as low as 0.039 SAR per kilowatt, demonstrating that renewables are now cost competitive with fossil alternatives. When we examine hydropower, biomass, and biofuels in Saudi Arabia, the picture is very limited. Hydropower capacity remains at zero, as the country's arid geography and absence of perennial rivers prevent the development of hydroelectrical projects. The Ministry of Energy confirms that no hydropower plants are included in the National Renewable Energy Program. In contrast, biomass has one significant presence, though waste-to-energy. The Riyadh Waste-to-Energy project, developed by the Saudi Investment Recycling Company, processes 1,500 tons of waste per day to generate approximately 85 megawatts of power, making it the kingdom's first large-scale waste-to-energy plant. This operational capacity is highlighted in the bar chart, where biomass shows 85 megawatts while hydropower and biofuels remain at zero. Finally, in terms of biofuels, Saudi Arabia has not yet launched any commercial-scale production. The International Energy Agency confirms that biofuels are not part of the energy national mix, though pilot research projects exist. The visualization underscores that, while solar and wind dominates, hydro and biofuels contribute nothing to the energy mix, and biomass contribute most modestly through a single waste-to-energy project. Saudi Arabia's wind sector is still small but strategically important. The country's first-scale wind project is in Dumat Al Jandal wind farm, located in the Al Jouf region of the northwest. It became operational in 2021 with a capacity of 400 megawatts, making it the largest onshore wind farm in the Middle East at the time. As the map highlights, Dumat Al Jandal is situated in a corridor with strong wind resources. This geographic advantage has enabled the project to achieve a capacity factor of approximately 43%, one of the highest in the region. The bar chart comparing solar and wind capacity shows the current imbalance. By the end of 2024, solar capacity reached 6,151 megawatts, while wind remained at 400 megawatts. Although relatively small, these 400 megawatts represent an essential diversification step in the kingdom's renewable portfolio. Developed under the first round of the National Renewable Energy Program, the project attracted international investment and set the precedent for future wind projects. According to the Ministry of Energy, several new wind farms are under planning and tendering, signaling that the share is expected to grow in the coming years. Solar power is the backbone of Saudi Arabia's renewable push. By the end of 2024, Saudi Arabia operated 6,151 megawatts of solar capacity, the vast majority of the kingdom's renewable fleet. As Gastad reports, five solar energy projects were operated in 2024, with a total capacity of 3,751 megawatts. The stacked bar chart on screen disaggregates the total. Sakaka, 300 megawatts; Sudair, 1,500 megawatts; Al-Shoaibah, 2,631 megawatts, and other PV plants totaling 1,751 megawatts, summing to 6,151 megawatts. The Ministry of Energy describes Sakaka as the first ever utility-scale renewable energy project under the NREP, with a total capacity of 300 megawatts, and Sudair as the largest power plant in the kingdom with a total capacity of 1,500 megawatts. For Al Shoaibah 1 and 2, the ministry states a total capacity of 2,631 megawatts. The map of project locations highlights how these PV assets are spread across Al Jouf, Sakaka, Riyadh region, Sudair, and Makkah region south of Jeddah, Al Shoaibah. This geographic spread supports grid integration by tapping resource diversity and load centers. The solar resource map shows the kingdom's exceptional irradiance, on the order of 2,000 and 2,300 kilowatts per meter square per year. As IRENA notes for the region, global horizontal irradiance ranges up to about 2,450 kilowatts per square meter per year, and Saudi Arabia sits among the highest resource countries. This resource quality underpins ultra-low tariffs and rapid scale-up. Finally, cost competitiveness is evident in recent tenders. The ministry documents record low solar pricing in Saudi Arabia's program. For example, Al Shoaibah achieves world-class benchmarks, with the ministry underscoring the project scale and competitive outcomes. In short, the data from these visuals, 6,151 megawatts total PV, the project split by site, their locations, and high solar resource, explain why PV is the central pillar today, while solar thermal remains identified as potential but without commercial plans yet in the kingdom. When it comes to geothermal and tidal energy, Saudi Arabia remains at an exploratory stage. There are currently no operational geothermal power plants in the kingdom. However, the Saudi Geological Survey has identified potential geothermal resources in the western volcanic fields, particularly Harad, Khaybar, and Harad Rahat, where subsurface heat flows could be studied further for possible direct use or power applications. Despite these studies, the Ministry of Energy does not include geothermal projects in the National Renewable Energy Program, reflecting the challenges of cost, exploration, and grid integration compared to solar and wind. Regarding tidal or ocean energy, Saudi Arabia has no operational or planned projects. While the Red Sea and Arabic Gulf are significant bodies of water, their hydrodynamic conditions are not optimal for commercial tidal energy extraction. IRENA confirms that marine energy has no active deployment in the kingdom. The infographic shown summarizes this reality. Both geothermal and tidal stand at 0 megawatts operational capacity. While their theoretical potential exists, especially in geothermal, the near-term focus of Vision 2030 remains firmly on solar and wind. In early 2025, Saudi Arabia announced a historic 8 billion investment in renewables, equal to 15 gigawatts of new solar and wind capacity. To put this in perspective, 15 gigawatts is more than double the entire renewable portfolio Saudi Arabia had built up until 2024. The agreements were signed under the leadership of ACWA Power and Aramco Power, marking a strategic collaboration between a global renewable developer and the kingdom's flagship oil company. According to the Financial Times, this program is not just about generating power, it's also tied to Vision 2030, where renewables are expected to supply half of the kingdom's electricity mix. If these 15 gigawatts are delivered on schedule, Saudi Arabia could surpass 20 gigawatts of renewables before 2030. That will still be less than one third of the 58-60 gigawatt target, but it also shows real acceleration. For comparison, Egypt currently operates around 6.2 gigawatts of renewables, Morocco 4 gigawatts, and the United Arab Nations about 3 gigawatts. Saudi Arabia's 15 gigawatts pipeline will leapfrog it to the top of the region. This investment also matters for global climate goals. If fully realized, this project could displace over 20 million tons of CO2 annually, roughly equivalent to removing 4 million cars from the road. This positions Saudi Arabia not only as a domestic clean energy leader, but also as a player in the global climate diplomacy space. In short, the single announcement is a turning point. From pilot projects in 2019 to 2021 to multi-gigawatt solar and wind development that can genuinely change the country's energy mix. As we reach the conclusion As we reach the conclusion of this presentation, it is clear that Saudi Arabia's energy landscape is undergoing a profound transformation. What was once almost entirely dependent on oil and gas is now gradually diversifying into renewables, advanced technologies, and long-term sustainability frameworks. By the end of 2024, renewables had reached 6,551 megawatts of installed capacity, representing about 72% of total generation capacity. At first glance, this may appear modest. However, if we compare it with the situation just 5 years earlier, when renewable capacity barely surpassed 100 megawatts, the pace of growth is extraordinary. Saudi Arabia has achieved in a few years what took some countries decades to build. The kingdom's approach is dual track. On one hand, it is delivering mega projects such as Sudar, Al Shuaibah, and Damad Al Jandal, setting global records for low cost solar power and developing in the Middle East's largest wind farm. On the other hand, it is still investing in conventional gas plants, ensuring grid stability and meeting the rapid growth in electricity demand. This balance between renewables and natural gas underscores a dramatic transition, ambitious, but also realistic in the face of current technological and economic challenges. Another conclusion is the scale of investment and ambition. Announcements in 2025, such as the 8 billion program for 15 gigawatts of new projects, confirm that Saudi Arabia is no longer experimenting with renewables, it is scaling them. By 2030, the goal is for clean energies to supply 50% of electricity, or nearly 58 to 60 gigawatts of capacity. That will represent a tenfold increase compared to today. The implications are enormous. Reduce oil consumption domestically, greater energy security, and new economic opportunities in export of clean hydrogen and renewable power. It is also important to recognize the global significance of these efforts. As one of the world's largest energy exporters, Saudi Arabia's shifts send a signal far beyond its borders. When the kingdom invested billions into solar, wind, and hydrogen, it influenced global energy markets and climate strategies. The Saudi Green Initiative and the Net Zero to 2060 pledge align these domestic developments with international climate diplomacy, positioning the kingdom as both an oil giant and an emerging clean energy leader. In conclusion, Saudi Arabia stands at a crossroads. The data and projects we have reviewed show that the renewable foundations are strong, but the scale of the challenge ahead remains immense. The next 5 years, between now and 2030, will determine whether the country truly redefines its role in the global energy system. What is certain is that the transformations has already begun, and it is shaping not only Saudi Arabia's future, but also the future of energy worldwide.